Most important is your daughters are looking at you. You're the role model. You are modeling what it looks like to walk in dependence on the Lord, to put your trust in Him, to allow God to meet every need that you have, and to watch how you walk in faith. And then when they become adults, surprisingly, often, this is when grief that might have been dormant for years comes up from nowhere. Or they grieve in a different way. They have a new perspective. So they're leaving home, they're going to college, maybe they're starting their career, maybe they're ready to get engaged and get married. And then when they become moms, it's going to be normal that they're going to have moments where they wish they had their dad. I just wish I could talk to my dad. And sometimes dad might be their favorite. I don't know how to say it, but they envision this amazing dad. Maybe he was amazing, but sometimes moms, and we have to brace ourselves because it's just we're the ones that sometimes might take the brunt of the grief and the emotions. But God's there for you too, Mom. And so we want to acknowledge again that grief is part of our story. It's not always going to be in the driver's seat, but it is there. I mean, and it changes and it looks different at different seasons. And so be aware of that and pray for your girl, pray for your daughters, bring other prayer warriors into your lives. And then you're going to watch God do amazing things. Welcome to Raising Fatherless Kids, where we believe that
God is a father to the fatherless.
God is a father to the fatherless.
God is the father to the fatherless.
God is a father to the fatherless.
Welcome to Raising Fatherless Kids. I'm your host, Lori Apon. Ladies, it's Valentine's week, and this, thankfully, is going to conclude some of the holidays that may be extra tender without your husband. Next on the calendar is Easter, and the truth that Jesus conquered the grave and He is alive today gives us all great hope. But Valentine's Day can stir those emotions again. It can stir desire, and it can be tender with your own grief. I don't know what your husband was like. Maybe he was a true romantic, and so without him here, you really miss that. Or maybe it brings up some angst of what he didn't do, and now you don't even have anyone at Valentine's Day, and that can be hard. For your daughters, it can make them miss Daddy because maybe he was the one that made them feel pretty. Maybe he did let them know that they were his Valentine. And so this is a good time to discuss milestones. And so today we're going to talk about milestones that you might anticipate with your daughters. Without a lot of drama, these milestones are moments that will quietly highlight the ongoing absence of a dad in the lives of our daughters. Even though they might not say it out loud, those moments matter. And so understanding that these will come allow us to prepare our daughters for the tenderness of the loss, but it also gives us the important opportunity to direct the focus to God, who does promise to be a father to the fatherless. He is with you, but I want to look at some of the milestones that you can anticipate with your girls as they go through life. So we'll start with those that will come early in childhood. And I understand that sometimes loss isn't linear, like your child loses their dad when they're a little one. They may lose their father when they're a teenager. But here are the things that they might experience when they're going through life without the dad, without their dad. Early in childhood, they don't even know how to verbalize the loss or what they're experiencing. But the loss is part of the formation of their life. It's part of the foundation. And so in those early years, the first day of school, every year, the first day of school, they're probably going to miss Daddy. Again, if he was absent and he was in and out of their lives and maybe he was traveling and so it wasn't significant for him to be there on the first day of school, well, yes, then it won't be as tender as it could be. But there will be maybe some father-daughter activities at school or at church. Maybe it's learning a new skill like how do you ride a bike? And Mom, you may be the one that's ready to get in there and help them do that, but there are some things that a little girl might want her daddy to help with. Or even if he never did, she dreams that if I had a dad, he would be the one teaching me how to ride a bike. And then you have special programs at school, a play or maybe an extracurricular activity that Daddy's not there to come to. And so this will prompt questions from the classmates who will want to know, where's your daddy? And so you're going to feel the loss, and that's important. Don't ever try to cover up the loss. Just press into it. Feel it. There's going to be tears sometimes, yours and hers, but then redirect your child, your daughter, to the promise that she does have a father. Psalm 68:5 promises that God is a father to the fatherless. You're going to hear that verse on almost every episode because it is the anchor verse for my own life, and it's really the theme verse for this podcast. But the reason for that is because it is a promise of hope. When God says He's a father to the fatherless, He means it. It's not an empty promise. And yes, it's going to be a different relationship than the relationship she had with her earthly dad who was here with skin on. But it is an amazing relationship, and it's one that we want to learn about, we want to grow in, and we want to give this promise to our daughters, to our girls, to our children, and teach them how to look for God as Father. And then those elementary years, awareness begins to increase. It's in those years, maybe in first grade, that they're going to be asked to draw a picture of the family. If you haven't been able to anticipate that this was coming, it can leave your child stumped, or you might learn something and maybe they'll draw Daddy into the picture. Who knows how they're going to do that drawing? And you really don't want to tell them how to draw the picture. It's a learning experience for you to see what they are picturing their family as. It's no longer a mom and a dad, the traditional family, but we're not unlike a lot of families in the world. And so, but that exercise will be a moment where they might feel the loss. And then there's your dads and donuts, and that's such a big event. And I want to encourage you, Mom, that it's easy to say, man, it's dads and donuts today, and speak negatively about that event. And even though it's hard, and we think, I wish they didn't have dads and donuts at school, because don't they know that this is a hard thing when you don't have a dad to come eat a donut with your child? But encourage your child to celebrate that children have fathers, and fathers are God's design. And just because you are now living a story that is different doesn't mean it's less than. That is so important. Embrace the truth and the reality and prepare in advance. Normally, you're going to know or be able to find out the calendar date for Dads and Donuts. It often comes in third grade, but your school may be different. And be intentional. I've seen moms go in as dad, and they stand strong and they have courage. I have seen times where a mentor might come in, and then there's times where the dads that are there might embrace your daughter and fill in the gap during that moment. But again, during the elementary years, there's going to be more questions from others, and the reality sets in for your own daughter. She might feel embarrassed if her loss is by divorce or desertion, if it's lost by suicide and that is known to others, the enemy wants to attach shame. We don't need to walk in shame. God doesn't want you to walk in shame. But often he tries to cause fear of being different. And Mom, I would encourage you to hold your head up high. Encourage your children to hold their head up high. Yes, they might feel misunderstood. People don't understand, and they're kind of at a loss of what to do with a single-parent family and children who don't have a dad. And many times you can educate them. You can help them to know how they can help you. Again, back to Dads and Donuts. It would be really helpful if you would be there for my daughter. Would you be willing to come to Dads and Donuts? And their wife might want to come too. Whatever. You'll learn to be creative, and God will lead you. If you're listening today and you only have sons, you don't need to turn this episode off. A lot of the milestones will be the same for your son. It's so important to give our children a narrative for their story. When a classmate asks, "Where's your dad?" it might catch your child by surprise, and maybe they're not comfortable saying he died, or they don't know how to explain that. Well, he's here sometimes and he's not others. And I would really take some time to have some intentional conversations with your child and help them form a story, form a script that they can share with others that is true. We don't have to give all the details of our story. I've said before, moms, you don't have to give all the details to the story. A lot of times there's more than your child is mature enough to handle, but help them and then affirm that God is writing the story of our lives. And I've said it often, he wrote it in a book before time began, and he writes stories with beauty. He writes stories out of his love for us. And he writes stories that are going to bring glory to himself. And then when our daughters, our children move into the early teenage years, this is when their identity begins to form. They're going through puberty and body changes. And especially for our sons, this is when moms want to step back and let dad step in, because young boys only want to talk this kind of man stuff over with their dad. But ladies, moms, for your daughters, this is a chance to really prepare for talking to her about the changes that her body is going through. And that involves the hormones and how hormones will even impact our emotions. And she might be tempted to compare herself to others, aren't we all? And we know that is so deadly and so dangerous and so much a tool of the enemy that works against us. And then our daughters desire approval. Boys want affirmation. You're doing a good job. We want that too. And then yet our daughters they want a dad to affirm her beauty, to tell her she's pretty. And again, maybe your husband, maybe their dad didn't do that, but it's a dream of ours, is just to have someone say that. And when that's not there, moms, I do believe your voice matters with your daughters. It will for your sons. And as they grow, really another man is going to, that voice is sometimes stronger, because moms are supposed to say those things, is what they think sometimes. But don't shy away from affirming her beauty and helping her during this time. She's going to feel extra vulnerable. I can never say that word, and we don't have to delete that out, but I keep trying to come up with another word because I can't say vulnerability. There you go. But as you know, her body's changing, and it's just crazy times. And so she's feeling extra exposed, maybe. She questions her value, and she's looking to others for what she would have loved to have had from her dad. And so moms, again, it's important to feel the loss and don't try to ignore it. That, I think, is one of the worst things we can do. Feel the loss. Almost put words in her heart and in her mouth to say, man, I bet you wish your daddy were here right now. Or, I wish your dad could see how beautiful you are. I wish your dad could see the young lady that you're growing into. But we have to hold up a standard of truth. Keep conversations going. Set the stage for open conversations. We've talked before about having a weekly tea talk. That's what I did with my girls. They knew that once a week we were going to pour a cup of tea and they were going to have some intentional time with mom. And if you have more than one child, our children crave the one-on-one time with their mom. And then encourage healthy mentors, especially female mentors, maybe a teacher, maybe it's a Sunday school teacher, maybe it's a coach. I was so blessed that my children went to a hybrid school, and those teachers there, many of them were women. Some grew up without a dad too. And so they had compassion and they had an understanding that they could come alongside and just mentor my girls, and just they were there for my daughters. It takes more than just mom. And instead of trying to carry the weight yourself, include others into your family and into your lives. And then you get to those teenage years. Hold on to your hat. I'm not one that looks at the teenage years as a negative season. This is when God is allowing your child, while they're in the safety of your home, while they're under your care. It's when our children are moving towards independence, and they're not on a leash, but use that analogy. It's like we loosen the leash. We give them more freedom to make decisions, to make choices, because we're there, we're the guardrails, and we can help them during those years. But in the teenage years, they're going to start to date, most likely, or engage in relationships with the opposite sex. And if they haven't had their dad modeling what that looks like, especially in your relationship, they didn't have a couple, they didn't have a marriage to look at, and they didn't have their dad modeling and demonstrating how a man should treat his wife, how he should treat a woman, because your dad's not even there to treat you well and set the standard for how a young man should treat a lady. And I am old-fashioned, and I make no apologies for that. I do believe that the man should pursue the woman. I do believe that young men should go to the father, and when he's not there, they should go to the mom and ask permission. And there's so much to that. And maybe it's a Southern thing, but it's really important. And so you're navigating that. I know I had my dad would take my daughters out on a date. He didn't live here locally, but when they were together, he was intentional about taking them on a date. So they knew what that felt like. He would pay for the meal. He would open the car door. And it was just a sweet time for them together, a sweet memory that my daughters have with their grandfather. But there were also mentors in our family that the wife was involved too, but my daughters were able to look at those marriages and look at those relationships. Then there's going to be school dances. And wow, school dances start much earlier than in the past. You might have that black and white dance where they wear black and white. That's a dance in our area. Then you have homecoming, and it's not just the senior prom. And so those are things that we need to talk about. And you don't have dad who is saying, oh, yes, you better take care of my girl. You better not cross the boundaries. And they even help set those boundaries for the young man. Get another couple to be a part of helping you with that. Graduation is another milestone. There's 8th grade graduation. There's high school graduation. You've already gone through kindergarten graduation. My goodness, there's so many graduations. And it's another time where that grief is going to be tender, very tender, especially when you see the dads doting on and loving and so proud of their daughters and their sons. And it's a void that is highlighted. But again, I truly mean this. I truly believe this. God is Father. He's Father. He's not less than by any means. He steps into that place and encourage your daughters that, no, you don't have a dad here taking pictures at graduation and interviewing your dates, but God is there. And it's just transitioning over to how He works. And He does use other people often. There's also going to be those decisions that are being made about where you're going to go to college and future plans. And then we've had some episodes early on with my own daughters talking about who will walk you down the aisle, the wedding aisle. And believe me, that's probably one of the first things your daughter thinks about when she loses her dad. Even if she's young, she can already think, oh no, who's going to walk me down the aisle when I get married? Well, if she is young, she can relax because God is going to be there. He's going to take care of her. And He's going to lead you in what that would look like and who that would be, who that special person would be. And I'll put links into the show notes. This wasn't a YouTube version, but these conversations where my daughters talked about the way the Lord guided them as they were getting married and who walked them down the aisle. I think you'd be encouraged by those conversations. And then if there was abuse, and if there was, I am deeply sorry. If there was really not a godly father that your daughter had, your children, your daughters may have some strong emotions toward men or men of authority if they were abused, if they weren't treated in the way God treats women and God wants women to be treated. And so be aware of that. That might take some wise counsel, might take some time to work and pray through that. And then a lot of times this fear of abandonment starts to enter in. Oh, it's a big one. It's a big one. It's a big scheme of the enemy. And just know that's exactly what it is, because God will never leave. He will never forsake them. I'm deeply sorry they've experienced abandonment and rejection in painful ways for many of them, but surrender that to the Lord. Really try to sever that. Pray through that so that your children can walk in freedom. And so you want to teach them how to do that. Most important is your daughters are looking at you. You're the role model. You are modeling what it looks like to walk in dependence on the Lord, to put your trust in Him, to allow God to meet every need that you have, and to watch how you walk in faith. And then when they become adults, surprisingly, often, this is when grief that might have been dormant for years comes up from nowhere. Or they grieve in a different way. They have a new perspective. So they're leaving home, they're going to college, maybe they're starting their career, maybe they're ready to get engaged and get married. And then when they become moms, it's going to be normal that they're going to have moments where they wish they had their dad. I just wish I could talk to my dad. And sometimes dad might be their favorite. I don't know how to say it, but they envision this amazing dad. Maybe he was amazing, but sometimes moms, and we have to brace ourselves because it's just we're the ones that sometimes might take the brunt of the grief and the emotions. But God's there for you too, Mom. And so we want to acknowledge again that grief is part of our story. It's not always going to be in the driver's seat, but it is there. I mean, and it changes and it looks different at different seasons. And so be aware of that and pray for your girl, pray for your daughters, bring other prayer warriors into your lives. And then you're going to watch God do amazing things. If you are in the metro Atlanta area, or if you live within driving range, I want to encourage you to come to Daughters of the King. This is on March 7th. It's a special time. This year, it's just going to be a special time for mothers and daughters to have a lovely day together. We'll have lunch, a little bit of pampering, and there'll be some worship music, and then two women who experienced the loss of her dad are going to share their stories, and two wildly different stories, and yet the same faithful God. I hope you'll join us. But milestones are an opportunity to place our trust in God in new ways, and I want to encourage you to do that, to encourage your daughters to do that. You will not be disappointed. And remember that God gives grace, and He gives grace one day at a time. May the Lord bless you.